So AI coding extensions have been taking over recently a little bit. I wouldn't say taking over, but definitely worth shining some light on. And basically what you can think of these as is just Cursor. When Cursor came out, it was essentially the first coding assistant that was inside your IDE, which is your integrated developer environment, which is where code has been built for like the last 20 years or so. I'm not really sure how long this IDE or VS Code, as many know it, has been around, but certainly a long time. And so this coding assistant Cursor was like the first time we actually added that into that development. And these are very similar, like very similar. Just the difference is Cursor was closed source. We didn't know how it was being worked. We didn't know how it was interacting with the code and taking users' prompts and building with that, right? But these are open source. So like I could take Cline, Roo code, Kilo code and start Cole code and make my own custom instructions and make it build my own way. And I'll get into why this matters, but that's kind of a big difference. But still, most people are using Claude Code or Cursor, and that's fine, but you should know why and where you could use these other tools. So in this video, I'll explain why these AI coding extensions are blowing up and how you can build with them even if you've never built anything with coding before. And I'll even show you how to download Cursor or any IDE. So my name's Cole Nielsen. I started coding with AI in March of 2025. So literally like 8 months ago, 7 months ago. It's not been that long, but you'd be so impressed. At least I'm impressed with myself, with how far I've come in just such a short period of time, but also how fast this space is growing. So when I started, I mean, it's like unbelievable how much better all these tools have gotten. And so it's been a really rewarding process to see myself grow, but also be a part of this fast-paced growing industry. And it's been super fun, and hopefully if you're maybe new to this, I can kind of help inspire you to get started because, like I said, I had no background experience with coding or anything. Just picked it up, started doing it, fell in love. So why not just use Cursor or Claude Code? Well, let's get into that. But there's several reasons. So these extensions support multiple providers through an API. So when you use Claude Code, all you get access to is, the default model, which might be Opus 4.1, Sonnet 4.5, which is released recently, and you're stuck with those models. But what if ChatGPT Codex, High comes out, Codex 5 High comes out, which it did, and it was like the best model. Well, you're still stuck paying $200 a month for Claude Code, which isn't how much it always costs. I pay $100, and that gives me a max plan, but there's a $20 plan. Point is, you're stuck with that specific provider. And with this industry moving so quickly and different models topping and becoming the next best model, you kind of want to have a little bit more flexibility sometimes. So they're free is another reason. And back to this real quick. You can literally use any model because you can provide an API key. So OpenAI, any of the ChatGPT models, any Anthropic models still, Gemini's, DeepSeek, so models in China, GLM 4.5, 4.6. Now to this, they are free and open source. So you get billed based on your actual usage, so your tokens and your API billing, which is much cheaper. There's been some controversy, like with Cursor, about they're charging us more than what the API really costs. So they're really that's how they're making their money. They're taxing us on our usage. But this is actually very transparent pricing. And I provided this GitHub link here because literally this is the entire code base for how this project or how these coding extensions work. Meaning I could basically clone it and I could start my own coding extension called Cole Code. And I could grow, I could build it, I can make it really powerful, and maybe it becomes better than Cursor, who's doing like $100 million in revenue. I don't know how often they're doing that, like monthly or yearly, but it's a ton, point is, it's a really open source thing, and I don't know, it's pretty cool. So there's an opportunity there, I guess. And then the extensions are customizable, which makes it much better for context engineering for power users. And then there's the usage overview, which I kind of touched on here. But as you can see, as you're going through, you can see how much usage you're using and the pricing that comes with that. So the relationship is basically Cline Code was the first one, the first coding AI agent extension, and it was open source. And somebody forked and made Roo code, which basically a fork is Again, like I just copy everything that Cline code has, but I make some adjustments. I want to maybe make it so there's a little bit more context engineering for my prompts or different ways it processes a user's query. And somebody also made Kilo code. So basically, they're kind of built on top of each other, but they're all open source, and the community helps build them. So back to this, when I would go here, let's say there's a bug that I see, I could clone it, say, or not clone, I could make a fork, make a proposed fix to some bug I noticed. So the community kind of helps build these models too, which is pretty cool. But each serves a different purpose, so worth knowing what they are. So Cline is the foundation model of them all. It's probably the most beginner friendly. It's simple to set up. It just lacks a little bit more customization. So that's kind of where Roo and Kilo code come in. So you can think of Roo and Kilo code as just upgrades to Cline. However, even if they have more features, you should still understand the basics and fundamentals of Cline, because again, while they basically, the more features and fancy things that go along with these two, they don't really mean anything if you don't understand how to use the basics of Cline. So here's how you can quickly set up Cline. I'm going to try and make this as easy as possible. All right, so if you don't have an IDE, you're going to need to download one, and I just suggest getting Cursor. You don't have to worry about paying. There's 1 week free of pro membership, and then after that I think you have still access to use it, just maybe limited access on some of the models. But point is, if you do want to upgrade, you get access to a lot of the new models that can do a lot of the coding stuff. So you'll download it, it's its own application, and once you're in, it looks something like this, and you can open a project, and when you do that, basically just make a folder, whatever you want to do. So I got this folder here for Cline code, open, and now we're in. And so once you're inside of here, this left side, it might be on your right side. I think I moved mine. But point is, same thing. This is your cursor interaction. This is that kind of first coding agent extension I was talking about that Cursor introduced in March. And that's closed source, but it is very powerful. You have access to different models, just kind of like what I'll be showing you guys here today. Different types of modes. You can agent, plan, background, whatever. Now up here, you guys will see this extensions, and if you go in here and you look up Cline, you'll see Cline code, Roo code, and you can also find Kilo in here. But since for the context of this, we're just going to stick with Cline, and I have actually never set my Cline up. I've used Roo code and I've used Kilo code, so very similar, but basically they're just suggesting here that they have a CLI, which is the command line interface, which could be used kind of like how Claude is. So when I type in Claude, I can use Claude directly in the command line interface or the terminal. And so I'm going to ignore that for now. I don't need to set that up. I actually may have set up my API key. It looks like I did. So never mind. I have used this before. But what you're going to need to do in order to set this up Okay, so once you've downloaded the Cline extension, it'll look like this, and I believe they provide like just a little bit of free credits to get you started. It looks like, yeah, 50 cents. So I can add credits through here, but what I would suggest, because I said once again, if you want access to all the models, and I mean all the models, I'll show you guys a very cool trick. So inside of here, go to settings, and then there's the API configuration. Right now my API provider is Cline, but we want to switch that to Open Router, okay? So click on that, and you need to enter an API key. If you click Get Open Router API key, it should open your web browser and take you straight to Open Router. Now what Open Router is basically this platform that takes all the large language models and can fetch an API key to any of them. And so inside of here, you'll see that I have $8 that I set up. You can do $5, $3, $2. Trust me, it'll get you enough to get started depending on what model you use. And so I'm going to create an API key, and we're going to call it Cline. I'm just going to call it Cline1. I don't know if I have one already. Credit limit, I'm just not going to even do one, but create. Now this is an API key and you don't want anybody to see this. So when I upload this video, I will delete this one. And the point is if I'll show you guys it here, you can try and steal it. But if basically you guys took this API key and then put it in your own command or your own cursor project, and we're using my key, you'd be using my card to basically build whatever you want. So it is important not to, basically share that, but you can also avoid like a ton of risk by basically I have $8. So you could only spend $8 really. And then beyond that, I don't have it automatically topping up when I reach my limit. So take that key, I copied it, and now I'm going to paste it right in here. And if I click done, it's ready to go. And inside Open Router, I can now choose any model. And I guess I should show you, maybe it'd be easier to look at it here. If you go to Open Router, you can see basically the unified interface for large language models. So one API for any model. And this is really like any model. So it doesn't matter if it's a DeepSeek, it doesn't matter what country it is. Now, obviously, it's not like this is protecting you against, like DeepSeek's not going to like train off the usage of your API key. But they all will, depending on what you're using, right? So if you went through Claude to get an API key, it's a similar thing. They have different privacy policies, but for the most part, you're not like being protected in some way that's better than just actually going through the provider. But this allows you to quickly choose which model you want to use, which gives you access to all of them. So you guys may have saw that I had like an Anthropic Claude model selected, but look, I exited out, and there's all the Anthropic models. I mean, I could use 3 Haiku, which would suck, but it'd be really cheap. But here's all these models, 4.5, 1 million context window. I think I just saw DeepSeek somewhere. Yeah, DeepSeek R1. So you can use any of them. Gemini 2.5, Llama 4 or Llama 4 Maverick, which that's like, again, an open source model. So you can't even really like use that, but it uses it through the cloud. ChatGPT 5 codecs, and like, so if I use 5 codecs, I can actually enable thinking. I think it's already on, yeah. So I can choose how much thinking I want it to have. So there's ChatGPT provides codecs 5, high, low, and medium, and that's for reasoning. So you can choose that too. And here, the higher the reasoning, the more tokens it'll take, but theoretically, the better output it will have. Now, if you're like, I don't know what model to use, and there's like a million to choose from, fair enough. On Open Router, there's this tab called Rankings, and inside of here, you can see which models are being used the most through Open Router. And also, just this chart is pretty crazy to see. This is by, I think, week. So these are by weeks. So October 21st, 2024, which is actually crazy enough a year ago from today, other than it's October 20th, but you get the idea. We had a total of 169 billion tokens used through Open Router. Now, last week, there was 4.65 trillion, and the week before that was 5.38 trillion. So, as you guys can see, Open Router has become quite a, common use case for using a lot of different models in any context. So this can also be used inside like an actual project. Like if you wanted to build your own chat interface that used all the different models like ChatGPT, Claude, you could actually use Open Router to let users select that, which maybe that's what we'll build for our demo today. But, I'm going to go through here. Claude Sonnet 4.5 is actually the second highest usage. It's up 5% this week. Let's go ahead and choose that one because I like Claude, and why not use it, right? So, Claude Sonnet 4.5, 1 million context window. We're going to give it high reasoning capabilities. And then inside of here, let's go ahead and say we want to build an app for allowing users to interact with several different large language models in one interface rather than having, a lot of platforms that they're paying subscriptions for. So we want to build a platform, and we're going to call it Your AI Garden. And basically, the purpose of it is to allow users to have one subscription for $20 a month, giving them access to all of the flagship models. So ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini, DeepSeek even, models that are overseas, GLM. And basically, we want to use the Open Router API key for this, and we want to have a very clean and familiar interface, one that replicates or looks similar to ChatGPT or Claude or these models. So it's easy to use, feels familiar, and has capabilities for reasoning, web search, file uploads, chat history, and we want to also have a way for users to get authenticated. So help plan this, and then once you develop a reasonable plan, I will review, and if it looks good, I will allow you to proceed and execute. So this tool here that I'm using is called Super Whisper, and basically it allows me to just use my voice to prompt. So there's two different modes here, is plan and act. I'm going to do plan, and while that's going, I just want to show you guys Kilo, what Kilo looks like on the inside compared to Cline. So inside Kilo, I have basically a very similar interface, but there's different modes here. We had on that last one, there was plan and act. This one has architect, so this would be kind of like that planning mode where it can plan and design basically the architecture of a build before it starts moving on. Always important when you're about to do something big. Code, so this is writing, modifying. This is more that act mode. Ask, just simply wanting to conversate and say, explain that to me, which is very important as you're new. Debug, so if you're getting a lot of errors and things aren't loading properly, then you can use the debug to basically go through and it'll diagnose what's going wrong. Orchestrator, this is impressive, but basically this is like orchestrating different agents to achieve different tasks. So this orchestrator might say, I need a research agent to go research the best architecture for building with an open router API key to serve multiple people for different models all at the same time, and then it also might have another one that's building, planning the architecture, just essentially can do multiple of these at once, or one could be building the front end, one's building the back end. And the, file uploads, index ready, which indexing, I guess I could just go over that because I think we were just getting to that. It's kind of hard to wrap my head around sometimes. But real quick, Roo code is basically Cline of power-ups. It's best for intermediate vibe coders. There's more customization. You've got system prompts that you can customize, custom slash commands, so basically building your own shortcuts. And then there's code-based indexing, which again is kind of hard to wrap my head around, but I can kind of explain it to the best of my ability, which is, Cline doesn't index your code base. And so when you want to basically ask a question or have it understand something about your code base, you have to provide the context. You have to say, in this folder, look in this folder where there's these files, and that is responsible for the authentication, and I need help basically, making it a little bit more secure. But if you don't know where that stuff is, which is going to be very common when you're new, just because there's a lot going on, it can be pretty difficult. So one thing I like about Cline here, Kilo code is that, and Roo code, is that it indexes your code base, which basically converts code into vectors that understand meaning, not just exact text matches. So the trade-off is Roo code is faster initial discovery of relevant code. You could say, provide me all the relevant code regarding authentication, and it would be able to find everything from front-end code to back-end code because it indexed it, understanding how it's all connected, where Cline is a choice of which context is added. So it takes a little bit more understanding, but basically this would be a visualization of it. So like if you were to imagine up here being the front-end authentication code, would probably be semantically further away than the back-end server database code. But then, these orange ones here, maybe this is front-end authentication, which would be semantically closer to back-end authentication, which would be maybe on this side. So front-end, back-end, both authentication, so they're closer. And so that's kind of an example. Kilo code definitely has the best user interface. It's most customization, and they're adding features like frequently, so that's kind of makes it exciting. And that's all I have with this presentation, so that's nice that we can be done with that. But back to this, let's see how our Cline code agent's doing. So we can see here that the context used was 16.8 thousand tokens, or I guess 31.2 thousand tokens. We used 1.7% of our context window, which is 16,000 or 17,000 out of 1 million, which is pretty impressive. So this is saying a unified AI chat platform providing access to multiple flagship models through a single $20 a month subscription. Yes. Front end, Next.js, React with app router. Okay. Core architecture, users. Yes. So this is just overviewing, again, it's planned what it wants to build for us. And I like the way it looks. And so because of that, based on just my glance here, I'd probably analyze this deeper if this was like a project that really had high stakes, but it doesn't. So questions for clarification. Let's read these. Authentication, do you want to include OAuth providers? Let's just avoid that. OAuth is like, when you go on Google or on a website and it's like sign in with Google, which is very easy to set up, but I think we'll just, for simplicity here, just do email and password. Trial period, should there be a free trial period before charging? Sure. Usage limits, nah. Branding, yes. So for the authentication, let's just keep it simple for now and just do email and password. We'll add OAuth later. Trial period, no. Usage limits, no. Also for the trial period, actually, yes. Let's not set up any way for users to pay through like Stripe or anything yet. We'll do that later. For now, it's a beta. It's free for everybody, but soon we'll start charging users. But let's not even worry about setting that up. Usage limits, no. Branding, I want you to decide based on your use your best front-end architect and product design strategies to make some branding and styling for this to make it look a little bit different and not just like some, basically AI generated slop. Additional features, no. For now, no. So now with this prompt, I'm going to say act, and it's just going. I didn't even click send. That's okay. But as you guys can see here, so all of that planning costed 9.59 cents. 9 cents, like literally nothing. Install the following packages. I wonder if it'll just do it for me. Auto approve, sure. So here's the code base directory. I think I need to type this for it. Which would you like to use? No. So here is that directory that it already started building. There should be a way you can get this Cline chat kind of over here where the cursor one is. I just don't know how to do that. So kind of got to go back and forth. It's important, especially for learning and just like seeing what the hell's happening, going back and forth and looking. But basically all of the code will be built into here, and this is just the scaffolding of a code base. So there's nothing really relevant going on here yet. As you can see, like the README is basically just pre-built by Next.js, which Next.js is like a front-end, back-end code base starting kit to make things kind of just speed up. It's got everything just to get things rolling. So anyway, I'm gonna just kind of pause, and I'll probably resume if anything kind of cool happens, but this can take, sometimes depending on how hard the models are working and how high the reasoning effort is, Yeah, it could take. I mean, I've had experiences where it takes several hours, which can be frustrating because usually at that point, you know that something might be wrong. But realistically, if things go right and smooth, they should be able to get enough started in 30 minutes. So we'll check back and I'll kind of show you guys and maybe explain some of the things that popped up that are worth knowing. All right, so this env.example file is the environment variable, which basically is where you put API keys that are needed in order for your app to run. And so in here I can see we need the open router API key, which makes sense, the next auth URL, which I think it can get on its own, next auth secret, which we can worry about later because that's for deployment and we're only really going to be testing in our local environment. And so sorry, whenever Cline makes changes, it changes that. So Brave Search API key is basically to give it web search capabilities. And so I went over here. Nope, I didn't go there. I went here to Brave Search API. I just looked it up, and I just made an API key for AI Garden. Copy it, and then if I go back into this, I can copy this right here, copy, and then go back into my actual env file and go down here. That's really annoying how it keeps doing that. Quotation marks, and then grab this again because I had to copy that other thing. Stop. Oh my gosh. This is gonna drive me crazy. Nice. So that's that. And I'm gonna go file, save, just to make sure it gets in there. And as you guys can see, Cline is just still coding away. And we've used now a total of almost $1.99 is where we're at right now. And it's built out quite a bit already. Obviously there's a lot of errors we can see here. So if I pop up my terminal, there's 17 errors, or 16 now. Now there's 20, 19, 17, 18, 21. So like as it builds, there's just going to be errors that come up, and it might finish up and say, all right, things are ready to go, things look good, and there'll still be problems here. And that's kind of where that iteration between you and the coding agent go back and forth until things are actually working, because it's not perfect, but obviously it's doing a lot of the legwork for us up front here. So I think it's actually doing, I don't know, I think it's almost done because it's writing a README file, which is usually the last step. So let's see, model selector component. Now I'll create a comprehensive README file with setup instructions. Okay. So features, multiple AI models, access to GPT-4. See, it's a little behind in terms of knowing what's the best models. So we need to go to Open Router now and provide an API key. And just to make things simple, I think I'm going to use the same one I'm using for Cline. So take that, go here, env, I don't think that's our key. That'd be pretty weird. That's not it though. Open router. Is that it? What is that? No, that's very clearly our Brave Search API key. So I guess I will just make a new one. How are we doing on credits? 691 should be good. Okay, again, file, save. And so what was Cline's famous last words here? Happy chatting. What is this? Happy chat. So I'm just gonna say inside of the .env file, I've added the Brave Search API key and the Open Router API key. Can you connect everything and run the development server so I can preview and interact with the product? So my guess is there's no way that this is just ready to roll and it works. I think that there's going to be some things that need to be fixed. It's even saying having issues, check README for detailed documentation. Okay, so it's got my keys there. You can see the MVO files, the Open Router, but it's missing the next auth. Let me add those rows. Does it really need, oh, I see there. Yeah, so it is able to provide that at least, which is nice. And I have to go find that. So let's just see what happens when I go to localhost, which is your local development server to preview code bases without it being deployed on the web. It's not showing up. So let's see if I can see any errors here. Yeah, I didn't think so. Starting Prisma server. Still, I'm not sure what's going on. I can see it's just having a little bit of a hard time. Okay, now it's synced at least. But why isn't it running here? No. Oh. Localhost 3003. The hell? Okay, here we go. At least we got our issues here. So I can now copy that and say, receiving these errors, please fix. And like I said, it's very obvious that that wasn't going to work, because if all of this is, not gone for the most part, there can usually be a few things in here, but like for the front end chat interface, like there can't be these errors. It won't load properly. If there's sometimes things in the background like, oh, the fonts aren't working properly, it's not that big of a deal. But I think most all these front end ones need to go. But the fact that I'm getting these Next.js issues popping up in the front end is good. Okay, so it thinks for whatever reason it's resolved, but that is not the case. So what I'm going to do here is say take that, and honestly guys, what I would do is I'd go into here, got ChatGPT 5 high, and I'm going to say this project is nearly complete. However, there seems to be a few problems and errors in the code base. Above is the console logs inside my browser when I'm on localhost 3003. Please review the problems. It appears that there are 4 issues with the front end chat interface TypeScript file, so please resolve. And this, hopefully, you want to use all your tools. You don't want to just use Cline. Like, you want to use Cline, Codex, Claude, Cursor, everything if you can. But I do just at least want to show you guys the majority of the work being done here inside of Cline, because that's what the video is about. So anyway, I'm going to pause here and just kind of see what happens. Okay, so you can see that Cursor's decided it's got 2 to-dos. Fix the Tailwind setup so border, and tokens work in global, and then resolve the 4 TypeScript issues, which are these ones. So it's basically doing exactly what kind of Cline would do, but maybe in a little bit more of a strategic way. And also, I mean, it's just a different model, so it processes kind of requests differently than Claude would. So still going. It's been maybe 2 minutes or so, and it's reviewing these files and trying to see if it can find any obvious fixes, because they're all coming from this message list, message input, model selector, sidebar, and then down here, all the squiggly lines. Still hasn't fixed anything though. It's literally just been thinking. See, it's like thought for 14 seconds, thought for 11 seconds, thought for 44 seconds, 11 seconds, and now it's thinking again. So it's good to kind of like review these and see what it's doing so you guys can also understand and learn from it. Okay, so it made some changes to the global CSS file, and it's still, oh, there we go. It just resolved it, so glad I could kind of capture that. Now let's see if we go over, okay, here it is. I guess start chatting for free. This isn't the best user interface, but you know what? No judgment. We'll just see how it works, if it works. Okay. New chat. So you can select the models up here. DeepSeek. Let's see. Hello. Hello. At least it has the chats here, right? Like, oh, I saw a reply, but then something happened. Server response status, bad status, okay. So what's the best AI model? Look at that. Can I collapse the sidebar? Okay, so you guys see, we just built this using Cline, and it only costed us $1.65. Now, is it great? No. But this is like the hard part, is getting it all configured. Now, polishing it up just takes time, but it's not that hard. So, I'm actually pretty happy with this. So, mm, I guess I will polish it up, and I'll show you guys how I can do that. So, basically, we used cursor to get rid of those errors and fix that. And I'm just going to collapse that by, and then I'm going to collapse. I'm just going to open up the File Explorer here, close my terminal, and then this is my Claude Code extension. Now, I just want to show you guys Claude Code. Again, I like to use everything. So I'm going to say, please evaluate this code base and look at the user interface. You are a user interface and product design expert, and you are going to enhance the product by using improved techniques for the components and different interactions for the users. Right now, it just looks like almost an HTML site, and I would like you to improve it to feel more like a modern site that feels a little bit more like the frontier model interfaces from ChatGPT or Grok. So look through them and see how you can improve. Please use some of the component libraries from React or some of other component libraries that have just a better overall interface design, user friendliness, etc. First, plan and quickly analyze and present what kind of changes you could make to make it feel a lot better. So with this prompt in Claude Code, I should be able to have a pretty good way of moving forward. There's some commands in here like ultrathink. Oh wait, let me but using different commands, you can make it actually work quite a bit harder and do more. And yeah. Okay, so Claude's plan, UI modernization plan for your AI garden. So your app is functional AI chat platform with basic CSS styling, basic HTML-like components, simple message bubbles. So the modernization strategy is using Shad CN UI, which for reference, guys, I'll just show you. It's basically a component library built on React, and this is kind of just how it looks. So like, I mean, this would be perfect right here, actually, this chat interface. And so it'll use components that have been pre-built and just optimized rather than building them on a whim, and they look kind of like garbage. Enhanced chat interfaces. So I'm not going to even like go through all this. Nice. I'm just going to say yes, auto accept edits, and it's going to go ahead and just start cooking away and making these changes. So when it's done, we will look at the changes it made. And this is off one prompt. Again, imagine you keep reiterating and you start building this project. And here's its to-dos. So it works intelligently by checking one off at a time, and rather than trying to just do it all at once, it builds out its plan before. That's just something that didn't used to be a thing back when I started, right? Like it would just try and do it all at once, and by the time it got to maybe like this third one, it forgot what it was doing, and then it started just, basically making a ton of random changes. So anyway, I will, basically resume once it's done with this process, which could take about 10 minutes.